Welcome everybody. We're just gonna wait maybe some 2 more minutes to make sure that everyone entered this event, and then we're gonna start with the coffee chat. Okay, so I think we can start now. Welcome everybody to this 5th coffee chat. The topic today is on tips and tricks for networking at conferences. And the idea was that you are well prepared for the upcoming World Congress in Vienna. Today is actually also the International Women in Engineering Day. So it's a great event that we can host this coffee chat. My name is Isabella Schalko, and I'm a junior group leader at ETH Zurich. Together with the IAHR Task Force on Strengthening Diversity and Gender Equity, we have founded this IAHR Coffee Chat series in 2020 with the idea to connect young professionals with established researchers within IAHR. The motivation was to specifically empower women within IAHR, but this is an open event and everybody is welcome to the discussion. So especially this topic today can be useful for anybody, and I'm really excited that so many of you are joining this talk today. So today we have 2 panelists joining us, Professor Ana Maria da Silva from Queen's University, Canada, and Dr. Catherine Wilson from Cardiff University, UK. And in addition to that, at the end of the coffee chat, we will also have Lisa Weidenberger from Book Vienna, who will give some insights on what events are planned during this World Congress in Vienna, specifically for young professionals. So the agenda for this coffee chat today is the welcoming remarks that I'm currently doing. Then we will have a brief introduction of the panelists, and this is then followed by a moderated and open discussion. So if you have any questions, please use the Q&A or the chat in the Zoom meeting, and I will read the questions out loud for you. In addition, I've also asked for questions when you registered for the event. I made a summary, so I also have some questions prepared. And then at the end, we will get some more insights on what activities are planned in Vienna this August. So first, I would like to ask Ana Maria da Silva to introduce herself.
Well, first of all, I would like to thank you very much, Isabella, for organizing this coffee chat. And it is an immense pleasure for me to be here today. And it is also an immense pleasure to see Dr. Wilson, whom I know many, many years, and whom I haven't seen in quite a while. So just to talk about myself, I am a professor at the Department of Civil Engineering at Queen's University in Canada, and this is in Ontario. So we are, from my office, I can see Lake Ontario. And so I have a very nice view. And I'm also, starting on July 1st, I will be the head of department. And so I use this opportunity as incoming head to come and visit us at Queen's University. My career, originally I'm from Europe. I was born in Portugal and I grew up in Portugal. So my BSc is in civil engineering from the Faculty of Engineering of the University of Porto, Portugal. So that's very close to the place where I was born and grew up. And my professional career has taken me to several places. So once I graduated from my undergraduate, it's very interesting, you know, because we went to Lisbon, to the capital city, during a trip, you know, these last year trips that students organize. And that's where I came into contact, which is known as LENEC, which is the National Laboratory of Civil Engineering in Lisbon, so in Portugal. And I was fascinated by their hydraulics laboratory, just absolutely fascinated. It was big, and in Porto, they did not have a lab like that. And I just said, oh, I would like to work here. And so that's where I went to work after graduation. I worked for them for 3 years, and I still have many friends that I made that time. And I really had the best time. I was working in urban flooding. And then my supervisor was Professor Yallen. He was here at Queen's University, and he came there as a guest to give a short course. In fact, the short course was a 2-week course on sediment transport. That's where I came in contact with him first time. And then eventually I came to Queen's University as an international student to do my master's and then my PhD, which I completed in 1995. And then after that, I went to work in a research station, which belongs to the US Army Corps of Engineers, which at that time was called the Waterways Experiment Station. I think today they are called the ERDC or something like that, and they are in Vicksburg, Mississippi, and you may have heard a lot about them because they have a lot of software and they really manage the rivers in the United States. But then, you know, the academia was calling me. I really wanted to move to academia. And what made me move is that as I was working in those types of institutes, first in LENEC and then in the United States, the projects were amazing. There were multi-million-dollar projects. There were teams of people which were exciting environments to work with because everyone was so smart in those groups. You know, it was like just amazing. But I did not have the freedom to take the research where I wanted to take it. So you had those projects, you were working. So I said, academia will do. Nice. I think I will be happy. And so I became eventually an assistant professor at the University of Windsor in Canada. For 3 years, I was there. Windsor is very near Detroit in the United States. It's just across a river in there. And ultimately, I came to Queen's University. And the main reason is because I love Queen's University, of course, because I'm its own alumni. I had spent quite a time here. And I moved here in 2000 as associate professor, then as professor, and then now becoming head of the department. And this is a picture of me in the place I like the most, which is the lab. So this is actually, I was here crossing the boundary to coastal engineering because we were doing some, you only see the bottom of the channel, not very quiet, it was empty. We were really doing some wave analysis and coastal erosion here. So if we can move to the next slide. And so my research is really environmental fluid mechanics. That's where I focus very much on turbulence. And what you see here is a picture. It's my idea of turbulence, large-scale turbulence in a river, which is in a paper which I published with one of my cherished previous former graduate students, Arash Kanani, in the Journal of Environmental Fluid Mechanics, where you see the large vertical eddies and the large horizontal eddies here growing. The second topic, of course, is river mechanics. And here I have very much focused on bed forms, dunes, especially large-scale bed forms, alternate bars, which we see them here, these magnificent bed forms in the Tagus River in Portugal. And resistance to flow and the hydrodynamics of meandering rivers. And here you see my meandering research facility at Queen's University. And these are some members of my research team. They were literally just posing for the picture in here. So this was for marketing purposes, but you can see this channel, which curiously is made of the same material that they use for the sideboards of hockey rinks, because it's very, very hard. So you can hit this with the ball very strongly and it will not break. And I think I took enough time, so I'm looking forward. Unfortunately, on webinars, we don't see you, but hopefully, and many of you probably will be in Vienna, so here we'll get your questions, but please feel free to approach me in Vienna and say I was in that webinar, because I would love to know who is here. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Anna Maria, for that introduction. The Flume facility looks amazing. So now it would be great, Catherine, for you to take the word.
Oh, thank you so much, Isabella. And it's such a great honor to be part of this coffee session, and so lovely to see the people that I can see, and I can also see everyone that's attending, all their names. It's great to have everyone here. So I'm Catherine Wilson, and if we go back in time then, this is actually me during lockdown. It's in my garden. But I thought it was appropriate because it's got lots of trees in it and kind of vegetation, and kind of mirrors a little bit of some of the work that I'm doing at the moment. So yeah, just to give you a chronological kind of order of my kind of career and what got me interested in just hydraulics in general, was that I did my BEng, so it's a Bachelor of Engineering. Back then, in the UK, a Masters of Engineering didn't really exist. So I did a BEng. And while I was doing my civil engineering degree, I just kind of took a trip to the library one day at the University of Sheffield, and there was this article, there was this kind of magazine, an IAHR magazine of all things. I stumbled on it, and then there was this article about compound channel flow and rivers in general. So it was written by someone called Robert H.J. Salin, and he wrote about compound channels, meandering compound channel flow, a bit like that channel, that single stage channel, that meandering channel that Anna had in her picture. And I was like blown away by this. I just thought I have to do this for my PhD. I'd already been offered PhDs in urban drainage, and they were really great positions and they were well paid. But what I decided to do was write to this person at University of Bristol. And that's how it all started for me, doing a PhD in compound channel flow. So this was experimental work that I did, and also field work that I did. And that was the start of my kind of career as a researcher anyway. So I started at University of Bristol against several people, said, don't do it, do this better paid job. But this is where my interest was at the time, and I have no regrets. I'd do it again and again and again. So my PhD in meandering channel flows, looking at, it was looking more at mechanisms. So it's kind of, it was secondary currents, and looking at physical mechanisms to the conveyance aspects of compound channel flow. But that was amazing, because what it happened was it gave me an opportunity in the first year to write a paper. So straight away in my first year, I was so lucky. I managed to get a really great data set from a previous kind of RA, took me under his wing. And he said, look, why don't you go to the IAHR in London? So this is back in 1995 during my PhD, and present a paper. And I thought, oh my God, I couldn't possibly do that. This is going to be so scary. He said, you can do it. So I did. And that was the start of my kind of maybe career in kind of as a researcher. It gave me a real lift, because as you know, at the end of your first year of your PhD, you kind of sometimes, not everyone feels that confident about that route, but it opened my eyes to the whole world of research, because I came from quite a small research centre of maybe about 5 people at University of Bristol's Department of Civil Engineering, and then I met hundreds of people in London. So this was amazing. So this is that was during my PhD. I took part in the JFK kind of student competition. Again, I didn't want to do it. I was said, you can do it. So I did it. And that was an amazing opportunity, because once you present, as several of you will probably know, or all of you, then people come up to you at a conference and they start talking to you. And it's kind of amazing. They come to you. You don't even have to make any effort. It was incredible. Anyway, I met lots of people during that kind of conference. There was a visit, I remember it very clearly, to Imperial College, the hydraulics laboratory. So I had such a great time on that tour. Again, just blown away by their facilities, and met many amazing people. Anyway, cracking on a little bit. After that, I went and worked in Department of Geographical Sciences. And again, that was against someone saying, don't go there. You shouldn't be working in geography. You're a civil engineer. But I never regret that. It kind of taught me so much about different approaches to formulating kind of research questions. So for 3 years, I worked in geographical sciences at University of Bristol, again, with another research group. It was a very large research group. And the person that ran that research group was quite young. So he had very different ways, or he was just a different person to kind of what I was used to. And that really opened my eyes again to this whole world of research. So during that time, I even got to go to the IAHR conference in Graz in Austria. So I'm really excited about this summer, because I'll be going back to Austria again, and hopefully have an opportunity to meet many of you that are attending this coffee meeting in Vienna this time. So after that, I was very lucky. I applied for a grant, and I was extremely lucky that I got awarded this very prestigious grant, a 5-year grant as a research fellow. And I took that from Bristol to Cardiff, and I joined Professor Roger Faulkner's group, which was is very famous in the UK. I know it's very famous across the world. And again, that gave me kind of more experience working with different people. So this was all numerical modelers. I'd done some computational fluid dynamics during my postdoc at Bristol for 3 years. And that's what took me to Cardiff. And after that, I couldn't leave, really, because I was the only experimentalist at Cardiff at the time. And it was amazing freedom to be there and have a whole lab and work in the laboratory. So that was my beginning of my career at Cardiff. I went to work at different places during that time, during the 5 years, including in Sydney, University of New South Wales. That's the water research centre that's quite famous. And then I started teaching. I became a lecturer. I got offered a lectureship, a full tenured lectureship at Cardiff. Very lucky to be offered that position as well. And that was the beginning of my teaching career. So I've been there ever since. I haven't ever moved, and there I am now. So back a few years ago, I became a member of a government kind of advisor for flooding in the UK, and that's been an amazing kind of thing for me to do, advising the government ministers in flooding. And it's also opened my eyes to kind of policy and strategy as well, and given me great insight. So also from about 2019, I became head of the hydraulics lab at the time. Now I've got 2 labs at Cardiff, and here I am today. I'm deputy head of the Hydro Environmental Research Centre at Cardiff. The director is Professor Sheng-Shi Pan, and we're a group of about maybe anything between 35 and 40 people. We just can't keep track of people. So it's kind of standard deviation of about probably 5 people. And that's at Cardiff University. Anyway, moving on. Oh, next, Isabel. Very quickly, this is some of my research. How I met Isabella is actually kind of reading some of her amazing research papers. And so I too do work in wood, in-stream wooden structures. These are kind of full width spanning structures that are used in the UK and the Netherlands for nature-based solutions to flooding. So I've got some little pictures here of different designs, and that's kind of one aspect, very practical aspect that I'm working on at the moment. And what we do, I work with numerical modelers with my background and developers, and we're kind of developing kind of different algorithms or routines to represent the hydraulics when we have overtopping of these barriers and mimic the storage on the floodplain as well as the conveyance. Another aspect of my work is looking at microplastics, and this only began a few years ago, and we're looking at microplastic settling of different microplastic particles, different shapes with biofilms, as well as we've got a project that's another field-based project. And then kind of lastly, I'm now working with fish passage for the last 7 to 8 years, working with biologists and looking at fish kinematics as well, and looking at the forces on fish that are generated by turbulent structures. So this is another little bit of work that we're doing, and the impacts of installations such as turbines on fish passage, looking at the how successful different passage techniques are. And yeah, without further ado, I think I've kind of talked a bit too long. So back to you, Isabella.
No, not at all. Thank you so much for the introduction. I always find it so interesting to hear the background and kind of see which path everyone has been taken. A lot of times it's not linear, so that's also nice to hear a bit of diversity. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and start to kick off maybe with the first question. Catherine, during your presentation, you mentioned that in 1995, you attended your first IAHR conference in London. So the first question for both of you would be, how was your experience when you attended either IAHR or any conference for the first time, and how were you able to make a meaningful connection?
Well, maybe I go on that one.
Go for it.
Because, okay, so I had very similar experience to Catherine. And so I was, as you understood, so I came to Queen's University in 1989, January 1989, to start my master's. In August 1989, the IAHR Congress, the World Congress, was in Ottawa, 180 kilometers away from where Queen's University is. In a beautiful hotel downtown Ottawa. I still remember that conference was amazing. It was incredibly well organized. And as all of them are actually. And my supervisor was Professor Yellen. One day came and said, "We are all going to Ottawa to the IAHR Congress." It's fun, that's real fun. And we loaded, at that time, many of us, it was different world. Many of us didn't have cars, but we all had bikes. And everyone loaded the bikes on his car. And there we go. And another car also loaded with bikes. So we did a lot of biking in Ottawa too at that time, which is, and so that was wonderful. And that was really the big first conference that I attended. And I was in complete awe of the thing. First of all, one of the persons that was there was a very famous professor called Professor Kennedy from the University of Iowa, who I believe, I don't know whether he was president of IAHR, maybe not, but he was really at that time one of the top people. And so there were these unapproachable people. But which I would never think, but it's interesting because there was a person that was president of IAHR. His name was Professor Forrest Holley. Oh, and wow. He was also from the University of Iowa. He was absolutely extraordinary researcher. He was also an extraordinary human being and an extraordinary IAHR president. He was literally looking for young people, and he would come and introduce himself. And so I really was brought into IAHR through the hands of my own supervisor and the hands of the president. So there is also a responsibility on the Executive Council of IAHR to actually go around. And you will find that the IAHR, we really love young people there, young researchers, because we realize that's our future. And so if you are approached by someone from the council or from someone, we really want to get to know you and what you are doing. So that was how it came to be. But there is another part that I thought was extremely important, you see. The people I know today is because I met them as young people in those conferences. So going to so for example, Catherine, we were both in 1995 conference, but I don't remember you there. I certainly remember meeting you in 2005 or 6 in Seoul, Korea. And many of the people that I certainly know all the famous people because I met them when they were young people in those conferences. So you must also look into the future. You are maybe, you are not getting to know people, this conference, the famous people, but I can assure you that you are meeting the famous people of the future. And you are also making a community of friends. A support community. So that was my first experience. I was just taken, I was blown away by the research that was being presented. So focus on other people's work, because going to a conference is a learning experience, what you get from it. And you start to get to know people. You may not know all of them, but you start to know them. Some in 89, then I met others in 91, others in 93, others in 95 conferences. It just kept going. And your network just grows, like that. So that was my experience.
Okay. Very interesting to hear that your advisor was so supportive and introduced you to the community. So Catherine, how was it for you when you attended the first conference? Was it similar or was it more on your own?
I think I just remember, I think I didn't meet Professor Holly Forrest at the time, but later on I met him, and I think you're completely right, Anna, that or Professor De Silva, that he just came up to all the young people. He was amazing, and there were several people like this that don't ever be scared at IHR event, that people are so inclusive. And if you can kind of take part in any activity, social activity, or say a special class that's on, so that it's easier then to make those connections with people, get an opportunity to talk to people, even at the coffee times when you're queuing up. You see someone that you really want to meet, but you're a bit daunted, kind of like stand next to them. You could introduce yourself, and you don't always, it's really good to, I think, prepare in advance for a conference if you can. So back to kind of London, 1995, I wasn't that prepared. I was giving my presentation, everything, but the next conference I went to, I was super prepared. I thought, right then, there's all these friendly, amazing people. I made a list of all the people that I wanted to meet, these big hotshots that I'd read their papers. And I thought, right, I'm going to prepare a few questions as well, kind of technical questions that I'm really, really kind of, interested in. I've got one opportunity to ask them what they think about something. And I think that's quite a good approach if there is someone. And I kind of then, it's very difficult for everybody, whether you're an introvert or an extrovert, to approach people. But, there's coffee sessions and everything. You don't always have to talk about work. Sometimes you can connect with someone just by kind of, the British ways to talk about the weather, for instance, people are people, and you don't have to you can talk if you know something about them, maybe they play tennis or anything that you might have in common. You can kind of connect with them, and I think you'll find that hopefully that everybody's so friendly at IAHR event, that people are always so interested in other people's research. So yeah, back to London. So it's similar to Professor De Silva's experiences. And I remember just meeting people, even going to the bathroom or something like that. Everyone would just start talking to you or outside the bathroom, all different places, and coffee, everyone. And even the tours, there's tours of even like a laboratory, because I believe I'm so excited about seeing the hydraulics laboratory in Vienna and Buko. An event like that, you get to know people, you get opportunities to connect with people and talk to people. So never be daunted by kind of meeting people. Sorry, Anna. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I just meant I would like to follow up with something.
Good.
Yeah, go ahead.
Very interesting, because you see, for any of you that are going into an IAHR Congress now, the environment is actually very different there from when Catherine and I started attending those conferences. So it's, you bring up the 1995, which was really, I still remember that conference so well. But I also remember that I came out and I'm standing outside. I think it was in the, what was the conference center? Was something the professional engineers of...
it's the Institution of Civil Engineers, and it's around the corner.
Yes, it was
in the Buckingham Palace.
Civil engineers. And then I got tired. You know, sometimes in conferences you get tired because there's so many people. And I thought, okay, I'm feeling a bit overwhelmed by too many people. And I stepped out, and I'm stepping just at the door. And there is Professor Marco Tubino from Italy. We are the same age, the two of us, but we were very young at that point. And I remember we stood there, we had a chat because we already knew each other. I think he was also there just to relax from all that people. And he looks at me and he stops and says, do you realize that we are the two youngest people in this conference? Actually, Catherine, I think we missed you. So there was, so it was more difficult to actually enter the community. That we have really changed within IAHR. And there is definitely a sea of young people too. And so it's easier to start networking, you know, and then those people will take you to their supervisors and that. In my time, it was really more complicated because there is all these really very established researchers. And this stayed in my mind. Marco looking at me, do you realize? But the problem is we were not in our 20s. We were already in our 30s at that point, you see? And you too, Catherine, you know, you're probably younger, but there were very few younger people, okay? So that has all changed for the best. So you will find it a more welcoming, much more welcoming, easier to enter a thing than that time where some people found it very easy because if you are, or Catherine, because if we have a very famous supervisor in the world, they would just, you know, go. But I also realized that, you know, I remember there were some people that were so famous, we could never talk to them because there was just a crowd of people around them. And one of them, I remember Professor Gary Parker from the United States. It was incredible. I you know, we couldn't talk to him because there was always a crowd of people already. I remember that so well.
I remember. Sorry.
No, you go first, Catherine. I just have a follow-up question.
On that note, what I do remember is like, even like Gary Parker always has a whole group around him wherever we've seen. I've never been able to say hello. But what I found was like meeting people even the same age as you, that everyone's so kind that you talk about your work with someone else, even though you might be in slightly different areas. And they go, oh, you should meet so-and-so. You should meet so-and-so. And people like connect each other with different people, and they'll connect you with their supervisor, and their supervisor might know someone that is, you know, kind of working exactly in your field. And that's what happened, you know, kind of people connected really fast back from that 1995 conference. I met, you know, quite a few people that I'm very good friends with today and still work with, and introduced me to others. My network just kind of became quite large, and then you can connect with them at every single conference and meet more and more people. I think I was going to say that. So kind of, I'm always blown away about how amazing people are in general, and how giving people are, and how generous people are.
So continuing the connections. Maybe just to follow up on what you've mentioned previously, when you said that oftentimes also there's like a crowd around a certain researcher, or sometimes, I mean, people are in groups. So one question that I've received is, how do you then approach like a group of researchers? Would you just be as bold and go in? Like, do you have any advice for that? Like, imagine that person that is surrounded by so many people, you really want to meet that person. What would you do?
That is a very difficult one, because you can't just cross like that. But, you know, if you want, it's very important to realize that a lot of the work within IAHR, the technical work, is done within their committees. The Fluvial Hydraulics Committee, the a coastal engineering committee, the this, the that, okay? So the very first thing to do, if you want to start getting to know people, each one of these committees has a meeting in the World Congresses. Those meetings are open. And they are usually with smaller amount of people. You know, it's the committee, so it's a group of 10 people, and then you can start to get in there. So my advice is start there, in the technical committee meetings in the World Congresses, okay? And then do what many students have done over the years. They are working in something that's what I'm doing or related or that I've done, and they will come and say, I have a question about my research. If I could explain it to you. And I have sat, and those were some of the best moments in IAHR congresses for me, where I have sat and someone has explained me their research. And because, you know, it's so much stuff going on in there that I may, oh, this is very nice. Can you give me your paper? And then we get in contact afterwards. So there is a lot of work that's done afterwards. But I've also sat there and said, well, let's go to that room where no one is, and let us just see what you have to say. So don't hesitate to approach someone and say, I'm so-and-so, I'm doing this research, this is my work, I'm having these questions. I would like to know your opinion, what I'm doing. That's just totally normal. But above all, also, you know, the conference is a place where you go to actually learn what other people are doing, to get this exposure to what the world is doing, and to measure your research level against what's being done in the world. Okay, am I doing the things at the level that other people are doing? So there are lots of questions. So meeting just the famous people in there, it's important part, yes, but it's not the only thing in a conference. And also, what I like about conferences, you know, the first 2 days I don't do anything in the conference because I'm just meeting my friends. And I also want to know about their lives, you know, how many children, grandchildren they have. So there is this human side, their experiences, which I find extremely enriching. You know, we are only human beings because there are other human beings with interesting and lives. And so that's a big part of the social part of it. It's also very important.
Yes, thank you. There's one question from the chat, maybe for both of you, what you think are like business cards, is this still relevant? Do you hand them out? Would you recommend that? Or do you think now, since you can probably type in the name and Google that person anyways, or do you think it's important for a young professional so that the more senior person maybe remembers their name?
Shall I take this one, Anna? Or I feel that I think there's still a place if people want business cards to give them out. They're quite handy, but I don't think they're kind of about 15 to 20 years ago. That was the way people did it. It's not completely necessary. You know, kind of you could write, but it's if someone's really super busy, it's quite a quick way to give them information, isn't it? It's especially kind of maybe someone that, you know, so they have to take their phone out, the phone, and make a note and everything. It's quite a convenient way of kind of remembering who you are, or in general, but they don't seem to be so, yeah, they're not as relevant as they used to be.
I never used business cards in my life. My business cards, the ones I have, still say assistant professor. So that's how old they are.
Mine are completely outdated as well. Yeah, but I did notice that I was in Granada last year, and a few times we were like, oh, people wanted information, where, you know, what my contact details straight away. And the young people would just always like get their phones out and then type in my email, you know what I mean, into their phone. You don't want to take notes like that. But kind of maybe you've got a lot of things happening in your mind. Maybe, you know, kind of you're very successful. You've got all these, you're one of these people that's got a swarm of people around you and there's a lot happening. It's kind of a handy way of, again, I think it used to be a way that people operated, but it's no longer. but
What
there's
I
nothing wrong with it.
What I think can be very, very useful is when you do, so the best way actually, and that we haven't mentioned that, to get yourselves introduced in the conference is to do a great presentation.
Yeah,
This is,
definitely.
people start to look at your research. And so make sure that in the first slide, you put there your name very clearly, you know, and the institute you are working at, what you are like PhD student at so and so. And in the last slide, just make a thank you for your attention slide and put your email address.
Yeah.
And I think that, because then you get the attention of the people that are interested in that topic. So we can't, your presentation there. And that's where I have started many conversations with people afterwards. It's after the questioning period, but sometimes outside too. So I've come to connect with lots of people after a presentation where people come and ask me questions.
Mm-hmm. Maybe to add to that, so in 2017, I actually used a business card, and in the back I wrote down when I would be giving the talk, and I handed it to Ellen Wool at that time, and then she came to my talk, and then this kind of started our collaboration and me visiting her. So I think it's like maybe it's not, I'm not sure if people would do it now still, but it was a, yeah, I think maybe this is also great to get people come to your talk if it's not in the JFK session, for instance, because this would attending the JFK gives you visibility already.
I like that idea very much. Yeah. So let us just do so attend the technical committee meetings.
Yes.
Give a card, but make sure you write your talk. I like that too. And make sure during your presentation to really put your contact there so that if people afterwards want to follow up, I like that. That's already a strategy here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So another question from the chat is, would you recommend starting a conversation and connecting to people right at the conference, or would you rather like request their email and connect with them later?
You can, I always, that's why I really disliked all this pandemic, because there was no person-to-person contact. I think if you can get to connect with that person there, that's the best route. If that doesn't work, then afterwards.
Yeah, I also think that one time, sorry, Anna, actually with Isabella, I kind of when we were in Granada, I was like, oh, Isabella, she was like kind of chairing, and I saw her, but she was just preparing to chair a session in Spain. And I was dying to go and speak to her. Anyway, straight after that session, I don't know what happened. I had to run to another session. I was presenting or what have you. And then I was looking around. So then that night, I think I emailed Isabella, and I said, oh, should we meet up? So sometimes we didn't know each other by that stage. It was just kind of, I wanted, sometimes if it's really crucial with someone, that was different for me, perhaps. It's really crucial, and you keep on trying to meet this person that you want to, for instance, that is kind of really, well, kind of doing very similar research, and you don't want to talk to them about your research. If you try for several days and it's like really frustrating, maybe, then you could email them or something, kind of say, look, I'd love to, give them a get out. Would any possibility I can meet you for a coffee? I understand if you're too busy and you've got too much on and what have you, but and I've done that a couple of times, but I know that's a bit different in my position when you're a bit more established than being kind of a fresh PhD student. So I completely agree with Professor De Silva about kind of giving an absolutely brilliant presentation, preparing for that. You'll get lots of people coming to you when you present. Yeah.
Well, let me just add, there is something about this. This week we actually had here a two-day conference, and I had really to have a talk to one of my PhD students, because she was really so much focusing on how well she is going to do or poorly, that I just thought you're not going to make any use of the conference, because you are now so focused on your own presentation that, if your presentation is in your last day or the fourth day or third day, you waste half the time of the conference just keep preparing and worrying about your presentation. So just relax. When we say, brilliant is like, make it as good as you can, make it sure that it's attractive to people, that you capture their attention. But don't worry, don't make the conference all about worrying about your presentation and that it will determine your professional future, because it's not like that. So I have found conferences incredibly inspiring. Sometimes I'm there, it's like I'm here on the day-to-day, and there is all this business going around, that I have to deal, to the point where my brain kind of stops working. And then I go to a conference and somehow it's like, oh, now I'm listening to this talk and it's just something lights up in my brain. And so many ideas I developed in conferences, just because somehow, so there is that aspect. Don't forget, a conference is also a tremendously learning experience where you are learning from other people. So it's not just all about going there. We are not we're not business people. We're not going there to sell our wonderful airplane, and to make that. We are also there to learn what the world is doing. And by connecting and listening to other people, somehow we get different ideas. So that's an important part of a conference too.
Definitely. On that note, I feel exactly the same, that every conference I go to, even the first one I went to when I didn't know that much, I find them very invigorating. You get all your new ideas from those 5 days at the conference, because a lot of the time, perhaps, Professor De Silva, you're doing so much in your job now, with your being, the head of department. You're very, very busy every single day. I'm very busy in what I'm doing, that you don't have to always time to kind of really relax and think about your research three-dimensionally. You'll kind of focus more on kind of smaller things. But at the conference, it gives your mind space to distance yourself a little bit from your work, and looking at other people's work, hearing about other people's work, and not focus on those kind of the smaller kind of day-to-day things, and think kind of at a larger scale. I think on that note about the presentation, I think that's very good advice about not worrying too much about it, but I think you should be completely prepared. Prepare your conference presentation before you go, and practice it before you go to the conference. If you hear people saying, oh, I'll just write mine on the plane, don't believe that they do that. Some people do that, but they're very experienced at probably presentations. So I believe that you should be prepared a few weeks before you go, so you can really enjoy the conference and not focus on, on making the presentation or kind of changing the presentation while you're there. So prepare your presentation before you go in advance of your conference.
There is a video, Isabel, there is in the question and answer by Victor Manuel.
Yes,
there is an incredibly interesting and to the point question. If we could go to that one,
Yes, so the question is if it would be fine to ask complex technical questions during the conversations to people who may have an answer, to kind of also give a good impression maybe for a future job. So what would you say?
I would say that if you want to ask a complex technical question during conversations, yes. Well, it depends, if people are chitty-chatting in their coffee time, and suddenly you come in with a complex technical question, it's like, oh, this is not going to work very well, really, honestly. You are just interrupting the flow of the conversation there. But if you are, one of the things I found with younger people including my own students, is that somehow when the conference questions come, they really feel shy for asking their question. So do not feel that. You are as entitled to ask your question as anyone else. Now, it's not to get a future position or to give a good impression, it's for scientific reasons, okay? So you say, oh, I have this question, I didn't understand something in this presentation. So you ask your question. So you can approach someone also, so you have a really complex question about your work that you do not have the answer, but you know that that person, in fact, I have two questions myself, because I'm dealing with a problem that I don't know the answer from one of my graduate students. I have two questions I want to ask to a person in Vienna, to a certain researcher, because it's on turbulence. And I'm waiting, well, I'm not going to write because I really, I think writing. So I'm waiting to go to Vienna and approach this person and say, you know what, I'm doing this. I have no idea I'm looking is what I think it is. What do you think? So just like I'm doing this, you can do the same. And you see, I'll tell you the story of life, in research. There is younger people and then there is senior people. When we become senior, we're really trapped here because administration starts coming over and taking over our lives. And they really, head or no head, I'm a scientist. I'm not an administrator. And so I'm balancing that. But the people who are doing the research here are my students. So you guys are the ones that are doing the research, okay? So it is, you probably have more complex questions than I have. And we are all dying to go to be scientists most of the time. Catherine, you must be in the same position, So we are so the world of research, it's when you are young. In fact, I was this week in a presentation here, and there was a very top person, and she actually defined, she's in our, research administration office, and she's a very famous professor herself, and she said that there is this sweet spot in age for research. And, it's really those sweet spots of people are really active in research is towards the younger group. So feel strong about that and empowered with that. So the complex questions, we expect you to ask them and to challenge us. And that's why, when I go to a conference, I'm actually, let me leave administration behind. Let me focus on science. If you come to me with a complex question, I will be delighted to have actually be able to sit down and talk about it.
Yeah, that's true that there's a difference, like how much you can focus on the actual science, the more senior you become. Maybe as a last question for both of you. So we've talked about preparation then during the conference, but how do you then follow up? So you met someone during a conversation at a conference. What do you do then after the conference, kind of to keep up that connection? What would you do?
What I generally do is we talked about business cards earlier. Rather than business cards, you could offer to kind of email that person, couldn't you? If you want, I can email you to keep in contact, something like that. And then I went to an event recently, and afterwards everyone did that, kind of emailed each other, go, oh, hi, I just want to say hello, I met you at coffee. And that's kind of one way of doing it, kind of communicating. So that you've got those details, you've got the contact details of that person. If you want a more in-depth
2 Minuten oder in 3 Minuten.
Or if you've got a more in-depth technical question, then possibly then you could have a meeting with them. Over to you, Isabella.
Okay, yeah, that's a good idea to have the send out the emails afterwards. Anna-Maria, do you have anything to add?
No, that's what I think too. There is, I'm very bad at typing the questions. There is just a question.
Yes, there's one very specific question. Do you want to type an answer or?
Well, I think this, question is about someone who is looking about an opportunity to work in other labs. And this also comes out of conferences, for example. So it's related,
Yeah.
where you may also be looking at there establishing a contact with the person for the lab that you want. So if you want to know, you want to say, I want to go and do my PhD somewhere else. I want to go and work for a period of time in a lab that is in Canada or the US or in Europe. And so you can establish that contact and already inquire from the people what opportunities they have, or you can write directly to that person. So,
Yeah.
the way we get graduate students here is by direct contact to the researcher in that field or running that lab. I hope I answered, because this is a question by Fatih Aydin from Turkey.
Okay. Yeah, that was.
If
very
not,
good.
if I
Thank
did
you.
not answer, we start now as exercise. You can write me the same question in an email. I'll be happy then to be in touch.
Perfect.
Just
Perfect.
one little note was there are many people that will be looking for, might have positions, PhD positions, kind of research associate positions. Not everybody's got those positions, but might be looking out for people at the conference. They might be asking their friends or their collaborators, do you know anyone? I need a top student to do this. Do you know someone that is kind of, could do this? Sometimes that happens as well, and that's what they use as well. So anyway.
Oh, yeah, true. That's very helpful. Perfect. So thanks so much for providing your insights and sharing all this advice. I found it very helpful. So now Lisa Weidenberger has also joined us. And I'm going to share my screen, and then she can give you some updates on the events that are planned. So today we have the 5th coffee chat, and actually during IAHR, the World Congress in Vienna, we will have the 6th coffee chat in person. So there will be an email with a registration, and if you want to attend, please register. We will have Sachatorte, and we will be able to have coffee together and exchange a bit more on how we can make IAHR more diverse, more inclusive, and get your opinions on that. There on the website of the conference, there are so many details on the events for young professionals, so have a look. Especially the JFK paper competition will be, and then some more events, for instance, the Young Professionals Night that I can highly recommend, or discussions such as Meet an Advanced Career here. But now I will give it to Lisa for additional information.
Thanks, Isabella. Hi, guys. So I'm part of the local organizing committee, and I'm inviting you all to join us for this year's Congress in Vienna. As Isabella already mentioned, we have a lot of activities for young professionals, and I especially wanted to point out that we just started the registrations for the workshops and masterclasses. So this year we will have 2 masterclasses on Sunday and 1 workshop, and it will be one day before the Congress, and you can register now. And I think it's a great opportunity to enhance your skills and to also meet some people before the actual Congress starts. Then we also have some workshops during the Congress. Most of them will be in the Congress venue. And for example, on Monday, we have a workshop towards sustainable hydraulic structures. And on Thursday, we have a software workshop by DHI. And Wednesday is especially a great workshop. It's from the Nature-Based Solutions special session. And it's basically a lunch break. So we'll start with a lunch break, and then you'll have some sort of like seminar to then go into the field and to actually see the things that you were like in theory discussing. And then in the end, it will probably end with a barbecue. The weather's nice, hopefully, let's see. But these are all special workshops and masterclasses for this year's Congress, and you can register now. If you've already registered for the Congress, you probably received an email to register specifically for the workshops and masterclasses. If not, you can just register for the Congress and you'll be asked to join one of the workshops and masterclasses. Try to be fast because there are only a limited number of participants. And yeah, I think that's all. And I hope to see you all in Vienna.
Great. Thank you so much, Lisa, for giving that overview. So as you can see, there are so many events planned. So thank you much for attending this coffee chat, and I hope to see you soon in Vienna. And especially thank you very much to the panelists for sharing their experience and how they have successfully navigated conferences, especially within IAHR. So have a good day and hope to see you in Vienna.
Thank you very much, Isabella, and everyone. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Isabella, and can't wait to see everyone in Vienna. Take care.
Thank you.
I'm in the same position. It's been a long time without attending in person an IAHR Congress.
Yeah.
So this will be lovely. And we'll go for the cake too.
Perfect.
Isabella, thank you so much. This was something I very much enjoyed doing.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I think it's great that you shared your experience, and I think it's useful for a lot of people maybe that don't have a mentor yet, or just know one person that has been at a conference or something like that.
Thank you.
Okay, so
Thanks, everyone.
I think we can close. So
Bye-bye.
Bye,
thank you very much. See you.
everyone.
Bye.
See everyone in Vienna.
Yes,
Bye.
Thank you.